losing the car, going into the gravel, and then crashing into the wall. Red flag, of course. They stopped it. They had to pick up the car, move the debris and everything. He was on fire, man. And I don't mean like he was doing good, because he wasn't, right? He wasn't doing, I mean, literally, he was on fire.
Welcome to Turn 3, your pit stop for Formula One content. I'm Edgar.
I'm Walter. Let's jump right in.
This week, we're talking about the Italian Grand Prix. Before we get into the race, you have some facts prepared for us, like you always do.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
always ready, man.
Always ready.
Always ready. Let's go. The name of the track is Autodromo Enzo Idino Ferrari. It's named after the founding father of Ferrari. The track consists of 63 laps, 19 corners. The total length of the track is 4.909 kilometers. The total race length is 309.049 kilometers. The lap record belongs to Lewis Hamilton in 2020 of 1 minute 15.484 seconds. There's only one DRS on, and the top speed was 300.1 kilometers per hour.
I guess it goes without saying, this is Ferrari's home race, right?
That's
team.
Correct. Yes. When you see all the people over there, most of them, probably 90% of the people are wearing the red. The Ferrari red, for sure.
That's very iconic, right? So now, with the track details out of the way, but before we get into the race and all the fun stuff that happened, there's some news, maybe some stuff that happened before the race.
Yes. So the day before the actual practice and race starts, there was a tribute for Ayrton Senna at the track. Sebastian Vettel, really great driver. A lot of people love him. I love him, to be honest. He's one of the best. He actually owns the old Senna car. He owns it. He bought it years ago, and he was able to take it to the track, and he did some laps for the people in there. Yeah, it was a really amazing thing to see. He was somewhat emotional after the laps. He did some donuts at the end in front of the people. And after that, I think there were some shirts for the tribute, like the yellow from Senna and another, and all of the drivers had their own shirts. I think there were a couple of drivers that didn't have the shirt, and I saw some rumors about it. I think they were stolen. I don't know who, but they stole a couple of the shirts for the drivers.
That's so funny.
Yes.
After he did the donuts, I think, if I remember seeing correctly, he gets out of the car and he does one of these. Like, the amount of respect that they have for Senna is incredible.
I think he's a legend in the sport, of course, but I think Vettel, he's one of the best drivers of all the times, but he also one of the ones that respects the sport the most. I remember there was a little video for Formula One when they were asking the drivers if they can name all of the champions since the first Formula One championship. Vettel was the only one that was able to name every single one, man.
Wow.
Like, without making a mistake. Sure. It was so amazing, and that shows you how much he knows about the sport and how much respect from the old champions that he has.
It's really impressive because Senna, I think, if I remember correctly, we were talking about 80s, 90s. A lot of these kids weren't even born at the time.
Correct. Correct.
I call them kids, but the drivers, I mean, the drivers that are on the grid right now, like, some of them weren't born at the time. So.
That's correct. But all of them grew up with Formula One or with watching the old races. Yeah. It's like Vettel hero, let's say. It's Senna. And then we have the new drivers or the younger generation that they saw Vettel and Alonso as the heroes, and now they're driving with them. So yeah, it's amazing how it goes like in steps, right?
Yeah. And I love hearing when like the younger drivers start talking about like, oh, I remember looking up or seeing Alonso, for example, and idolizing him and wanting to be like him, and now I'm racing next to him.
Yeah.
I think that's super awesome.
Dream come true, for sure.
Dream come true. That car is actually a Senna car. This little figurine is actually Senna.
Oh, so, there you go. There you go. We can see...
We're going to leave him here for
We can see, of course, the helmet with the yellow and green colors from Brazil. So yeah. Awesome.
We'll leave him here for the rest of the episode. Another bit of news that we got was Alex Albon. He re-signed with Williams for a multi-year contract.
Yeah.
We don't know how long that is, but that means that he's going to stay there for the foreseeable future. It's concerning that Sargent doesn't have a contract.
No, they have been talking about it. The James Bowell, the leader on Williams, he has said they're doing everything as a team to help him reach the goals that they're putting to him, like actually helping him out as much as possible so he can perform and make the points and hopefully get a contract after that. But there's also the reality check, right? Like he hasn't done so good this season so far, and they need to start thinking about the future, and they're looking at other drivers. They still haven't made the decision, but their number one driver, Alex Albon, they have ever since Albon has joined Williams, I think he's been the strongest driver ever from there for them. It's amazing for him getting a multi-year contract. Also, we have one more year and then the new regulations. So he's going to be with Williams when the new regulation starts, which is super important.
You know, regulation changes could change everything, right? You could go from being, you know, a back marker, whatever they call them, to all of a sudden being in the midfield and stuff like that. So it's important, right?
Yeah, the main thing that I remember is when the regulations changed with the hybrid engine, it's Mercedes was so good at those regulations, they dominated the sport. So it shows you how important it is to get it right with the new regulations. And we will see a lot of changes in the championships for the constructor championships and the driver championships for sure.
There was some speculation that Alex Albon could go to Mercedes because of the relationship that there is between Williams and Mercedes. It doesn't look like that's the case, so there's still an open seat at Mercedes, and I don't know who could possibly end up
That's
there.
correct. We probably will continue talking about silly season. Some of the seats are getting taken, right? They're getting taken over. Some of them, they haven't signed the contract, but it's kind of like we know for sure they're going to be there, but it's not official yet, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting silly season in a couple of more races for sure. One point I want to make before we start with the race, right? Last week, we saw Magnussen getting a lot of penalty points. So before the last race, he had 5-point penalty points. And after the end of the race, after the end of the weekend, he finished with 10 penalty points. And this is something really important because if a driver gets to 12 penalty points, they get a ban race. So he's not going to be able to drive the next race after the penalty points, right? And it sucks, right, to be a driver and not being able to drive because of that things. And a lot of those stuff, it was because he was trying to be a team player, right? Helping Hülkenberg get the points. We'll see what happened with that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? Because like you said, this definitely was something that he was doing to try to help the team. You know, it kind of complicates matters because, of course, he wants to be a team player, but he's also a driver and he's also, trying to become the best driver that he possibly can be. So I feel like it's a matter of finding a balance, right? Like at what point do you say, okay, guys, I know that me driving aggressively or me being very defensive or whatever the case may be, I know that'll help the team's game, but I'm putting myself at risk, by getting a race ban. Yeah, the safety, also a race ban, because that doesn't go away, right? And then a few of those, or I'm sure there's 2 of those, 3 of those, or something like that, and then it gets worse, right?
That's correct. Another point, also important point, is like he doesn't have a contract yet.
That's right.
So he's doing the team player in hope for a contract for next year. But if he gets a ban race, it's like, well, that's one less race on your curriculum for the other teams or your own team enable for your contract for later.
For them to gauge performance and then consider you for a contract. So
that's correct.
That's
so,
true.
yeah.
And one last thing before we move on. Did you see they posted a picture of Carlos arriving at the track in a full mustache? Did you see that?
I saw, and I think he changed his name. I don't know if you heard that.
No,
yeah, he went from Carlos to Don Carlos.
To Don Carlos.
That's correct. Yeah. No, he has a new fashion sense right now. He's trying something different. I think maybe the mustache will give him some speed. We'll see during the race.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we finished with the news before the race, and of course we jump right into the good stuff.
Right.
So we jump right into practice 1, right? So we got a callback from an old driver that was he did some great job last time he was in Formula One. Of course, we're talking about Ollie Behrman. He was in free practice one with the Haas team. He replaced Magnussen for FP1. He did a good job, I think. He finished P15, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's good to see him there. I think he's probably gonna be there next year.
Even if Magnussen gets a contract on the house, there's still an open seat, which could be Ollie Behrman's, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And it's pretty certain because Haas has, as you know, the Ferrari engine power. Yeah. So pretty much they own one seat. Ferrari decides who's going to be there. So most likely it's going to be Ollie Behrman. We're still not sure. Maybe Magnussen, right? But we're not sure about the other seat yet. But yeah, we know for sure Hülkenberg's not going to be with them.
Yeah. One of the really cool things about Ollie Behrman and his race prior in the season is that based on the points that he got during that race, he's still like P14 or P15 in the standings for Formula One. Right?
That's correct. He only did one race in the season, and he's still ahead of some other drivers that have been driving for the whole season. Yep. So yeah, it tells you something.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I mean, it must be really exciting for him. And I think I heard something, and I don't really follow Formula 2, which is where he's racing right now, but he's doing better points wise in Formula 1 than he is in Formula 2.
Yes.
Which is crazy. So after FP1, we move on to FP2. Nothing too notable. Some impeding between, I think it was Leclerc and Checo. Checo impeding Leclerc, and then Alonso and Hamilton. Hamilton was impeding Alonso. There was some radio about it. You know, he was like, he's alone on the track, something like that.
Yeah.
But nothing too crazy. Nothing, you
know. No. Like you said, there were some impeding. There were some moments in the gravel, right? But nothing out of the ordinary for this track. That was it for the first day. We jump into the second day. Jump right into FP3. Oh my God. The first thing we saw. Yeah. No, I don't know how to even start, man. So we see Alonso losing the car, going into the gravel, and then crashing into the wall.
Yeah, it definitely, again, we go back to just the track, right? The track is a little bit narrower than most of the tracks nowadays. The cars are a lot bigger than they used to be, right? So that's kind of a recipe for disaster, right? You have cars that are too big for this track, basically. The track is very punishing for going over track limits, right? There's a lot of gravel almost immediately after the track. So just one tire goes off, and that's all it takes before you're, spinning out of control.
And Alonso happened, right? And Alonso, of course, crashed into the wall. Red flag, of course. They stop it. They had to pick up the car, move the debris and everything. And the problem about practice 3, man, FP3, is that they have so little time before qualis, right? I think it's between 3 and 4 hours before qualis. So Alonso crashes the car. Now it's the time for the mechanics to step up, right? They need to get the car, take it all apart pretty much, take all of the pieces apart, see what broke down, and put it together in between 3 and 4 hours.
Yeah, that's the life of a Formula 1 engineer, mechanic, yeah. But that wasn't the only crash, right? There was another one that's going to make us very sad. You and me. Because, oh yeah, where is it?
Yes. And of course, we're talking about Checo Perez. Yeah, unfortunately, he had a moment. From what I saw, he got too much curb, He went, like you said, he went a little bit outside the limits. And after that, he lost control. He went into the gravel and crashed into the wall. It wasn't as bad as Alonso's crash, but again, the mechanics have to do their job. You have to go get the car back into the pits, and then the mechanics take it apart, figure it out what broke or what needs to be fixed. And the other bad thing for him is like all of the balance and all of the work that you did for the car to be in perfect condition is pretty much gone. And you need to start over with all of the stuff. And all of the practice you get doing the laps and getting your braking point, the corner, the speed, he can't do that anymore. So it's going to be a hard qualifier for him.
And I'm just going to retouch on it because I think it's really important what you just said is they spend practice 1, 2, 3 getting the car just right? Because every track is different. The conditions of the track, the temperature, the type of turns that you're doing, all that is very different between tracks, right? So one weekend is, you might set up the car a certain way. The next weekend you change it completely. He had 3 practices basically getting the car just right. You crash it, they have to fix it, and you're going into qualies as if you hadn't practiced basically.
Pretty
because
much.
the car is, at that point, it's a brand new car, right?
Pretty much. P3 finishes with that after the 2 crashes, of course. Just a few hours, the mechanics doing their job, and we jump into qualifiers. This track specific, it's really hard to overtake. So qualifier is more important in this track than many of the other ones throughout the season.
Right. So typically with qualies, we tend to only talk about, Q1 or Q2 when there's notable people or drivers who leave, right? People who would surprise us that are not moving forward.
The status quo, right?
The status quo, exactly. So there was actually one who surprised us a lot.
It was a big surprise. It was, but it wasn't at the same time, right? So on Q1, we lost Alonso, unfortunately. I think it was because of the crash that he had in P3, like we discussed. The mechanics just had a few hours to fix the car. It was a big crash. So I think the car was not 100%. They tried to get it ready. They got it ready, but it wasn't competitive.
They fixed it just enough so that they could put in the time, or did they fix it completely but the setup maybe wasn't correct or something like that?
I think they were hoping it was a little bit better, and they were hoping to get a little bit closer to the front, but it just didn't happen. Q1, we lost, like we said, Alonso, but we lost Sargent, Alonso, Magnussen, Joe, and Bottas.
Q2, we move on to Q2, and again, we only talk about the surprises. And again, very sad to us. Our good friend Checo, he's out in Q2. And I'm gonna blame the crash as well. I'm gonna say it's a lot of the same, right? They rush to get the car back in working condition between FP3 and qualies. They do whatever they can, and then they go out there and they try to. They hope that it's competitive, but sometimes there's just not enough time to make sure.
That's correct. Like we said before, you have practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, get the setup correctly, your car to the perfect balance, the perfect point, and after the crash, of course, you lose all of that and had to start over. And in this case, Checo wasn't competitive. Yeah, he was out on Q2, unfortunately.
One more notable exit from Q2 was Stroll. Obviously, he's in the Aston Martin. He's somebody that we would expect, top 5 teams. You would expect him to move on to Q1. Unfortunately, he didn't make it.
He didn't make it, yeah. So we got out. We got Perez out. We got Stroll out. We got Albon, Ocon, and Gasly out. Yes. So we have 3 drivers that are from the top 10 out on those. So we have 3 drivers that are going to go from the medium teams up onto the Q3. So the 3 drivers that are not supposed to be on Q3 are Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, and Ricciardo. So big surprise for the RB team. Glad to see them again trying and fighting over.
I think they've been having a really good season, just like with a few exceptions, of course, but just in general, I think they've been doing better than they were last year already.
I think the upgrades that they're doing and the work they're doing is working for them. It's working for them. And of course, Hülkenberg, he's probably not in the best car, we know that, but he's been showing that he's a great qualifier over and over and over.
What a surprise we have Max Verstappen getting pole position. Like you mentioned earlier, this particular track, it's very important where you place in qualies because it's one DRS zone. It's very hard to overtake. It's not a track that you typically, associate with overtaking. So it's very important to place where you want to finish the race. And obviously everybody wants to finish first. So it was a big deal that Verstappen got that P1 for the result of the race. And especially because there was a record that he broke with this pole position, right?
That's correct. I believe it's the 8th pole in a row. And there's only 2 people in Formula 1 history that have ever done this. One of them is Max Verstappen. He just did it. The other one, of course, I don't know if it's a coincidence or no, why, but Ayrton Senna, of course, he was the other only driver that has 8 poles in a row. So pretty amazing for Max Verstappen to share that record with Senna for sure.
So you're telling me that if in Monaco, the next race, Verstappen gets another pole position, he will be the only person who have ever done that.
That's correct, but we'll see because unfortunately, if Max Verstappen, it would be for Monaco race, it would be his home race kind of because he lives in Monaco, but he has such a bad luck on Monaco. So we got Max Verstappen pole position, right, and then we have Lando Norris on P2, Piastri on P3. One notable thing, after the race, there was a penalty for Piastri. He got a 3-grid penalty for the race. He's gonna start on P6 instead of P3, and this is because it was impeding Magnussen after he got out of the pit lane, which it was pretty hard. Both of them agree that it was hard for them to see each other, but I blame the team. I went back and looked at the replay of what happened and see if the team told him that there was someone coming. Nothing. So yeah, it was totally on the team's fault on that part.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in other episodes and in the past. They're going really fast, right? So a lot of the times they look in the mirror, nobody's there. A second later, they look and you have a car right behind you, right? Because they're going so fast. So
coming 300 kilometers per hour.
Yeah. So the data obviously is what the race engineers and the people that are communicating to these drivers, that's what they're looking at. And to an extent, you would expect for them to be able to warn them and to prepare them for what's ahead or what's coming behind them, right? So I agree. I think it was just either miscommunication or the communication just wasn't there.
The angle also was kind of hard. So yeah, again, the blame is on the team. They for whatever reason, they didn't told him that someone else was in a fast lap. And yeah, it happens. He got a penalty and 3-grid penalty. So he's going to start a little bit farther than he would want it.
Race day, which is the main event. What everybody is excited about, right?
Yes, sir.
So they line up, the lights come on, the lights go off, and away they go.
Yeah. And super surprisingly for everybody, I think nothing happened on turn 1. There was no crashes. There was, I think, even the top 5, they didn't even change positions. It was pretty much clean start for everybody. There were some changes in position in the middle. I think the RBs had a bad start and others were able to take them. So yeah, all of that good work on quali from Ricardo and Tsunoda, it went away on the beginning, right? So yeah, unfortunately for them, but yeah.
Yeah, like you said, right? Like they have a bad start, and again, we always go back to, this is not the track where you want to lose a position at the beginning of the race because of how hard it is to take that place back, you know, moving forward. And it's something that we're going to touch on, and we'll go into detail a little bit more, but it was kind of a boring race for the same reason.
Yes. Unfortunately, I would say 75% of the race, it was boring. It was nothing much happened. Some really good overtakes, I would say, but nothing that make you jump out of your seat per se.
Because it was kind of a slow race, you know, for, like you said, 75% of the race was sort of slow, nothing too crazy going on. I think the way that we can maybe talk through the race a little bit is if we kind of just give highlights or things that happened that we found interesting.
I like that.
Even if it's like a lightning round where you'll say something and I'll kind of jump back with another one. So
I like that. So let me start then. Let me start. I want to talk about something.
You look eager, man.
I have something, man, on my head. Like let me get it out. So Fernando Alonso, right?
Okay.
Lap 8.
Yes.
He was on fire, man. And I don't mean like he was doing good because he wasn't, right? He wasn't doing, I mean, literally, he was on fire. So he started the race with, I think, the soft tires. And I think the team was hoping with the soft tire, he was able to maybe get some positions in the start. He wasn't able to do that, right? And the soft tires degraded super fast. So he had to go into the pits right out super quick. I think it was like lap 7 or 8. I don't remember. Lap 8. He went into the pits, changed the tires. When he was driving out of the pits, we saw the left front brake got into flames.
Just ignited, yeah.
To flames. And I don't know what happens in those cases, man. I don't know if they need to stop and someone brings a extinguisher or but what he didn't care, man. He just after the pits, he just accelerated and the fire went away.
He drove around like it was a Tuesday, dude. He didn't care. If my car got on fire, I'm getting out.
If I see a smoke, not like I saw the flames, right? And he didn't even stutter or nothing. Yeah, no. If I see a smoke, I'm out of my car.
Yeah,
right?
He did say on the radio like, "Oh, there was some fire, but it's out now or something." So lap 17, something like that. Bettis again. The track is very unforgiving. He goes, I guess, a little too wide in the turn. He goes off, and he's in the gravel. He's able to come back, and as a result of that, I think he had lost like 5 seconds, right, something like that. And that was enough to cause him to be, 10 seconds behind the closest Mercedes, which I think was Hamilton in front of him. So, without those 5 seconds, maybe he would have.
Maybe
it's hard to tell, but not Checo's weekend for sure.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah,
we've been going off about how this 75-80% of the race was boring, kind of a snooze fest. But we've made sure to include a good 20% chunk that made this race very, very entertaining and exciting. So I'm gonna turn the mic over to you, and you're gonna give us your perspective about what happened in those last few races.
So yeah around I think it was lap 50. I was actually falling asleep, to be honest, on my chair. No, I'm kidding. Lap 51, it's where, in my opinion, things started to get interesting, and we're talking about, of course, Lando Norris catching up to Max Verstappen, right?
Yep.
So we heard on the radio how Max is having hard times with the tires. They're gone pretty much. He's not as fast as earlier laps, and we see Lando Norris pushing hard, man. And one of the things, I think that was the best part of the race, right? We also heard a lot about the radio conversations between the engineers and the drivers. Some of them were super funny, right? Yeah. They are so straight to the point, some of them, right? Yeah. So I think like we said, like the last 10, 12 laps of the race were the most interesting because of the fighting for the podium, right? The first place.
Talking about radios, there was obviously, and that's kind of a running joke, right? It's Max and his engineer, GP. You call them. They're always they have like banter, right? And GP comes on the radio and tells him, "You're losing most of your time in like turn 6 or something like that." And then Max goes like, "Yeah, but I'm trying that. I don't have tires, basically." And GP goes like, "I'm just letting you know. It was just for your information." And he goes, "Yeah, me too. Yeah. Just for your information."
Correct. They're like an old married couple, pretty much. It's like a running joke, pretty much. Yeah. They're both have respect for each other. They have a good relationship from all of the years working. But yeah, when you hear them on the radio, you wouldn't think like that. He was pretty straight to the point.
It sounds like animosity, but it's not. And one thing I heard is when they communicate to the driver, they want to be as quick as possible, right? Because they don't want to break their concentration, right? We're talking about they go from one turn to the other in a matter of seconds, right? 2 or 3 seconds, and then they're in the next turn, and then they're in the next turn. And those turns are where the driver really has to focus, because they have to obviously take those turns as quickly as possible. So they have to really like focus on how they're taking the turn. So a lot of the time the engineers they have 2 or 3 seconds to squeeze information really quickly to them. So they try to, they're trying to be concise and, communicate that to them as quickly as possible. So.
Yeah, that's correct. And imagine you're driving at 300 kilometers per hour, and then you have a little voice telling you like, "Oh, you know what? You can do better. You can do better. You're going slow at turn 7 or turn 9. Yeah, I would be pretty pissed. Yeah, exactly. For sure. I'm doing my best, and there's this guy on my ear, on my shoulder, telling me like, hey, you can do 0.2 seconds faster.
Yeah. You're not doing your job well enough.
So I understand that. And like you say, they try to be really concise of what they're saying, really precise, and don't waste time. Because of course you have a driver driving super fast. They are following the line. They're doing the brake. They have their braking points. They're doing all of the changes with the wheels, the setups, the braking. It's a lot to take in, and also all of the information from the engineer. So yeah.
Yeah. Even talking to the engineer, right? Like, it's not like they're on a hot mic the whole time. They have to like press a button to talk to them. So, for them to respond is something like, oh, I need to respond. I have to press this button or whatever. So
yeah, and if you see the onboards of the drivers, most of the times they talk about when they're on the straight, because that's the only time they could, the easiest time for them. Because imagine like you're turning, so you're doing this, and then it's like, oh, I need to push the button at the same time. It's not gonna happen. So right after the radio call from Max Verstappen and GP, we jump into the Lando Norris radio with his engineer Will, and Will is telling him, you know what, Verstappen is complaining about his tire, and Lando Norris just right away cut him off, like, I know. Let me do my stuff. Let me concentrate, man. And it
almost sounded a little bit like passive aggressive, where he's like, I know, I'm trying my best. Thank you.
Yes. And then we jump again right back into the Max Verstappen and GP conversation, and we hear GP telling Max Verstappen, okay, you know what, he's getting closer. And we had the black and white flag, which is like the warning for track limits. And he tells him like, we can't do any track limits, so you need to focus and don't get out of the track, because Lando Norris is less than 5 seconds of him. So if he gets a penalty because of that, it would give him the victory to Lando Norris. So GP is just warning him like, hey, don't get out of the track, pretty much.
Yeah, because earlier in the race, he had gotten out. They waved the flag, which means you're fine for now, but if you do it again, we're going to give you that 5-second penalty, right?
Correct.
So basically, GP's warning him, hey, remember, we still have that black and white flag. So if you get out of the track limits, like, push, but be careful.
That's correct. And to me, it's kind of redundant, but I understand what they say. But it's like, hey, please don't go out of the track, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they're not trying.
Yeah.
But it's like, I understand. It's just like, hey, a little reminder.
Yeah.
Don't get out of the track.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, and then right after that radio ends, we jump back into Lando Norris radio again. We hear Will, his engineer, telling him like, you can do a little bit, you can push a little bit more on turn 9, I think it was. And then we get Lando Norris right back in, cut him off, and he's like, I know, I'm pushing as much as I can, man. Like, let me race.
Yeah. I think that's where I saw the thank you. I think it was after that message. I might have gotten confused. I think I heard the commentators, they were saying like, during those last 5 laps, right, where he's really catching up, like he's really getting close. They're like, at this point, the race engineer probably doesn't even want to call on the radio anymore, because at this point, they're completely focused. Right?
Yes. I'm pretty sure, like, after that conversation, that last radio that we heard, it was like, I'm not going to tell him nothing anymore. I'm just going to let him do his job and let him,
Lando woke up about 12 laps before the race finished, right? Because for the longest time, there was like a 6-second gap between Max and Lando.
That's correct, and I think that's where the strategy comes into place, because I think Max Verstappen was pushing way more in the beginning, and he of course killed his tires. And Lando Norris, I think he was driving a better race, and he was kind of like taking care of the tires. So he was playing a little bit of the longer game, and it almost worked, It was super close.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I remember a radio between Lando and his engineer saying, they're catching up to me. Like, we don't have the pace that the guys behind me, which are the Ferraris. They're catching up to us. And they're saying, but they're using their tires way more.
Correct.
And I think that's fantastic, dude. That is basically, that is the engineer and the people that are on the pit wall. That is what they're studying, right? They're looking into the data and saying, yes, but they're going to lose that momentum, at some point.
In X amount.
Exactly. And then you can take advantage of that and catch up. So, I don't know, man. That's like you said, it's strategy, right? And it played out well for
I'm glad you brought it up, because it's 100% correct. Yeah, I think it was Leclerc that was catching up to Norris. And imagine, he knew, like he saw in the mirror, and I don't know how they know, like he's getting closer, right?
Yeah.
It could be like nothing, but he knew. And like you said, the engineer told him like, yes, you're correct, but they're killing their tires. And in a little bit more laps, you're going to have the advantage. So yeah, it was, again, I think a great drive from Lando Norris, but also a great power on the team of the McLaren team for sure.
Like you said, right? It's Lando for executing it and the team for putting that plan together, basically. I think just all around awesome. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to take P1, but he got within a second, dude. Like that last lap, he was 0.7 seconds away.
I think maybe 1 or 2 more laps, I think he could have got it. But shoulda, coulda, woulda doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So the Max Verstappen takes the Imola 2024 Grand Prix.
Yep. And then obviously Lando close second, and then third we had Charles Leclerc.
Correct.
Now.
No.
Okay, listen to
no.
me. Listen,
I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to.
The last episode we recorded, we made predictions.
Correct.
I made a prediction for the podium.
Correct.
And I also made just a bold prediction.
Correct.
And I said that Sargent was not going to crash. All of those things were true.
I don't remember.
I will show you the clip. I will put in the clip.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. No, of course.
Let's
be serious for a moment. Yes. Let's go back to the predictions. Yes. You got all of them right. I don't know how. It's super surprised. I had to go back just to make sure. Yeah, you got. Of course, there was Max Verstappen, then Lando Norris, and then Charles Leclerc on third, and then you also said like, oh, Sargent is going to be on the podium. No, but he's not going to crash. So
yeah,
he didn't crash. So all of your 4 predictions were correct. So yeah, you take the point on this week.
So I'm going to give myself a point right here.
And I'm going to still be on 0. So we're 3-0 now.
Okay. During the last episode, we introduced a new segment that we call the T3 Turning Point. Do you have something prepared for the T3 Turning Point?
Yes. So we have Max Verstappen taking his 59 victory on Formula 1 at the 2024 Imola Grand Prix, right? And I think we need to talk about how he got it, right? Because as we discussed, Lando Norris was super close, but I think the main point or the T3 turning point of the race, it was on quali day, and it's because Max Verstappen right before on Q3, right before he started his last lap for the podium, he followed Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg was finishing his lap. And almost at the start of the track, Max Verstappen got behind him and was able to do a slipstream, and that helped him get a little boost in the beginning of his last lap. And I believe that gave him the pole position, which also could come into play because he got the pole, he got first on the race, and I think that helped him win the race at the end of the day. So for me, the TT turning point, it would be on quali for sure.
Quali, where the toe that Hülkenberg gave to Max.
Without even knowing.
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because he said something along the lines of, he helped me get into Q3 because Max had given him a toe. And so he's like, I just kind of returned the favor. I don't know if he was serious or not, but that's what he said.
I think it was a great joke, for sure. But yeah, I think that was the moment that gave the victory for Max Verstappen. After that is like a domino effect, Sure. So yeah.
Now for our favorite segment, we go to Rate the Race.
Rate the Race. So I'm going to be honest, it was a little bit boring. Like we discussed, there was some really good overtakes, a lot of excitement at the end, right? So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. That's my grade.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of an uneventful race. I love the sport. I enjoy watching a race, but there just wasn't a lot in it this time around, except for, like you said, those last 12 laps or whatever. So I'm actually going to score it a 6. 6 out of 10.
I understand. And I think it wasn't so much maybe the teams or the drivers. I think it was probably the track. I think it was what didn't help, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully we'll see if they make some changes in the future.
And then for the last segment we do do predictions, as the audience is well aware by now. I'm winning, so I'm gonna let you make your prediction first.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
Any chance I get to bring it up, I'm going to.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. And I'm gonna go bold. You know.
Okay.
I'm gonna not so much bold, but I'm gonna go bold. I'm gonna say Checo Perez takes the P1 on the Monaco next day.
Really?
Checo
Okay.
Perez P1, Max Verstappen P2, and Charles Leclerc P3.
Interesting. Okay. I am also going to go bold. And I'm going to say that Lando is going to win his second race
Nice.
in Monaco. Verstappen will have a close P2. And then in P3, it's Checo.
It's a Checo. Nice. I like that. I like that.
We'll see, man. I've been on fire.
We'll see. Hopefully, I get my first point for the next episode.
We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully.
we'll have to see.
I think that's it for the predictions for the next race in Monaco.
Yeah. And actually, I think that's it for the week, man. So thanks for joining us on T3.
And we will see you on the next race.